62% of the Germans thought that Germany played a more important role in the world today than it did 10 years ago. Well, so the Germans are feeling pretty good about Germany's role in the world, and I think you could argue that objectively that's probably true. Yeah. The Greeks were far less happy about Greece's role in the world. The Italians far less happy. So there was a wide variety of opinion inside Europe on that question. Just as a reference point, I will tell you, only 21% of Americans believe that the United States is more important today than it was 10 years ago. We have asked in the past questions about, do you think European economic integration has been good or bad for your country? Now, this is what I would call the 1957 question. You know, we signed the Treaty of Rome. We're going to break down barriers between our countries. This is going to be good for us all. And people were less convinced of that in recent years than they had been in the past. Well, what was interesting this year was, after seeing attitudes towards the favorability of the EU seem to bottom out in 2013 in a number of countries, and then it kind of began to crawl back up in 2014, and it was a little higher in 2015, and then it dropped off again in 2016. I wouldn't have anticipated that, I think. And I think in retrospect, it was because of the mishandling, or the perceived mishandling, of the refugee crisis. The issue that the publics are most critical of the EU about is the handling of the refugee issue. They're also critical of how they're handling the economy or how they're handling Russia, but refugees was the principal complaint people had about how the EU might be managing a variety of issues. What was fascinating this year in Europe, because we've never asked that question before, because this year is the year it's really a big issue, is countries like Poland, which have taken very, very few refugees, if any at all, were the most concerned about the threat posed by refugees, which actually bears out what we found in the United States, that the counties in the United States that have the lowest immigrant population, the smallest share of the population that are immigrants, are often the counties that have the greatest fear of immigrants. So it's fear of the other is part of one of the other fears you see in Europe. A younger generation is just more European-friendly, more at ease with the Europe that has become after two or so generations than older people. Now, this is also because they probably travel more, they have more communications with many of them may have studied abroad. What's interesting, though, is that this is the case even in places like Greece or Spain, Italy, where you have huge unemployment rates among young people. So you might expect that they would be even more bitter than their elders. But it is not the case. I mean, as we say in English, they've drunk the Kool-Aid. You know, they believe in this even though arguably it hasn't delivered for them. What our survey has shown is the depths of the impact of the financial crisis on Greek public opinion, that the Greeks are unbelievably negative about almost everything. It is an incredibly gloomy view of the world, whether you're asking them about how the economy's doing or how the EU doing or whatever the question. They are unbelievably depressed. And given the financial situation in Greece, given what's transpired over the last few years, I think that's probably understandable. But it does suggest that Greek public opinion is significantly different than the public opinion in any other European countries, even other southern European countries who have arguably also suffered, not nearly as much as Greece, but clearly the impact on Greek public opinion has been far worse than any of the other countries that we survey.